Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Happy Friday. So you want to learn more about protecting your data? Well, you come to the right place. So this is Brajesh, and I'm Samson, and we're going to talk about Microsoft 365 technologies to help encrypt and protect your data. Did everyone enjoy yourself last night over at Universal? Yeah, come on, louder, folks, come on. All right. You've probably seen the next few slides. You've been to some of those other sessions. So, make it simple. Data's everywhere. It's stored, it's transferred. Emails, documents, chats, everywhere. Could be internal, on-premise. It could be on cloud. It could be on third-party or your first-party, everywhere. And, it could be out of control. So, it comes back down to, do you have any strategy, to consider how do you protect those sensitive information in your organization, right? How do you control, data traveling inside, outside your organization? Are you using multiple solution, or you want to consolidate? What is considered business critical? What is to meet compliance? What is to meet security? All that is something that you constantly have to ask. And encryption is definitely one solution to help to implement the strategy. The three themes about protecting and governing your data, as you've seen before, is really understanding your data. Do you know what kind of sensitive information that you have, or being transferred among people inside and outside your organization? What about protecting the data? Are you putting encryption? Are you marking them? Make sure you have the flexibility to determine when to apply what type of protection. And then about governing them. Are you retaining them? Are you storing them? Are you encrypting them? With the right regulations. For the purpose of this session, we are focusing on the second and third pillar about protecting and governing your data. So, at Microsoft, we have various encryption and protection technologies, looking at data that are being stored at rest and data that being transferred in transit. We have service encryption, for applications such as Exchange and SharePoint Online. There's hardware level like BitLocker. And then in transit, there are network like TLS, and then using Office 365 message encryption to encrypt your email content. And in particular, as we mentioned, we have customer key for service encryption with Microsoft Managed Keys, and then for email with Office 365 message encryption and advanced message encryption. For the focus of this particular session, we are going to be focusing on Mailbox and email. Now, data in transit with Office 365 message encryption, OME for short, and advanced message encryption, AME. What OME provide is, the simplest thing to think about is control. The admins have the ability to set policies based on sensitive data, to provide encryption to the mail traveling inside and outside the organization. And similarly, not just on the admin side, the end user also has the ability to apply ad hoc protection as needed. And for all 365 users, what they also will get is seamless viewing experience when they're using the Outlook clients. And for sending to non-O365 users, such as Gmail, Yahoo users, we provide a OME portal for them to access to secure mail and be able to use single sign-on to seamlessly log in using their credentials. And of course, for compliance purposes, we have these all audited, be message traceable. Now with advanced message encryption, it is an extended, enhanced capability we have on top of OME, which for organizations who need to be able to communicate with their customers to provide multiple branding to their mail. Right? If you have different regions, in France, in Spain, in Brazil, you can customize those templates, have different languages, different logo, different branding based on your audience. In addition, providing that multiple branding to your customers, for time-sensitive information, you also have the additional ability to set an expiration on the mail, such as promotional material that lasts for the month or for 30 days. You can set that. And should you need to find that the content is no longer relevant, or appropriate for the audience, you also have the ability to revoke the access to the mail content. And again, this is auditable and loggable for you to track that. Now, we're going to demonstrate some of these capabilities that we have recently released on the multiple branding, the expiration, the revocation, and having native encryption when you attach a PDF document to the mail. So for organizations need to talk to their customers, such as example, in this case, I'm showing demonstrate as a healthcare or like banks, the hospital or the clinic may need to send sensitive information to their patients. So in this case, I'm the reception at a Contoso Health, the clinic, needing to communicate with my customers that there's a lab result from a checkup. So the reception is sending the information to notify the user that, hey, your test result is available. Right. So before, only Office documents will be encrypted when you attach the results. Now we have also added the ability to have the natively also encrypt PDFs. Now, with protecting your email, we can do ad-hoc encryption for the end user, going to the encrypt menu here. In addition, you can also protect your email using sensitivity labels, which provide the same protection, but in addition, also provide the ability to classify your information to say, hey, this is for the patient, let's put that in. Here, your test results. So once I send that, you can see that it will come over here once it arrives. So while we wait for the mail to arrive, I can show you, for example, we have, for example, an expiration on a previous mail that I've sent to the patient. And so if I click on this, it will say that, hey, the mail has expired. You no longer have access to that mail. And for the multiple branding, you can see that if I come to here, to the Yahoo Mail, you see this is now in a different color. This is now in French, because I target this specific patient is French speaking. So with here, see I got the email saying, hey, let's sign to the portal. As I mentioned, we have the ability to do single sign-on or one-time passcode. If you click for a one-time passcode, it'll send you an email. But if I want to do single sign-on, I just click on this. So you see the branding and carrier cost not just on the message notification email, but also, in addition, you see the logos also on the portal. So here, so before, if you send an attached PDF document to your recipient, this is not encrypted. But now, this is actually encrypted. And then we also have the ability for people who access the OMI portal. This is now, you can actually preview all of this. So if you set up the right proper protection, for example, you cannot forward the mail, you cannot print this mail based on the rights. Right? So same thing if I come here, I go Yahoo, I'll do one time passcode here. I'll get my code, and you can see I'll get the same results. Now, that's for the OIM portal. What about other users? Like, let's say I forwarded this mail or I CC this mail to my my doctor. The doctor right now, because the Outlook client, for example, like Outlook desktop may not provide this. So you see this is protected. Actually, OAuth will provide the ability to show this inline. It's coming soon. Now, what we can do instead is, if you download this file, you can also render this in the latest Edge Chromium. There we go. See now, the new Edge also provides the built-in capability to render the encrypted PDF. So that's for sending protected PDF. Now, you might sometimes think, okay, I sent the information to a wrong person, or later find out that, hey, I need to revoke the mail. So what we can do is come to the Security and Compliance Center and come to the encryption report. Here, you can come here and now have the ability to revoke the mail. So for example, you see I sent the wrong test results. Now that if I revoke this mail, I go back here, you try to access it now, it will say, hey, this has been revoked. So just to summarize again, we have the advanced capability to provide multiple brandings to your multiple audiences, and then in addition, the ability to expire and revoke the mail, and now extending beyond the Office documents, we can also protect your data for PDF files when you send mail while in transit. And you make sure that when information is sent outside to your organization or inside, it is protected. Now, looking a bit ahead, we've been working with different customers, getting different feedback. So things that we're looking into, for example, is enhancing and modernizing the branding experience to provide a more modern look, And then other things such as, okay, so what I've showed you is the admin having the ability to revoke that mail. So if the user have to notify the IT admin or other admin to do that. What about the end user themselves? We also are looking into, for example, the ability to provide the end user themselves right at the Outlook client to be able to revoke the information. So now that we've been talking about how to protect your data while in transit, now let's look at what happens about the mailbox and the mail that's being stored at rest. And I will give that to Rajesh.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Brijesh Desai. First of all, thank you so much for showing up on a Friday morning after a busy day yesterday. Really appreciate it. So as Sanson mentioned, he kind of showed you how Microsoft protects your data in transit when you kind of move it from one place to the other. But we also have protections in place for your data at rest, right? So we are going to talk about what it means for protecting your data in Office 365 services when your data is actually residing on the backend servers and how we take care of it. Before we go there, though, I want to kind of quickly touch upon why do we need this, right? I mean, as we all know, data is one of the most valuable assets for any organization. And anything that is valuable to us, we also make sure that we protect it as such. And data has no such exception, right? We want to make sure that your organization data is protected in the best possible manner. And we have seen so many incidents happening in the past over so many years that data that resides in an unencrypted format on the backend servers gets compromised, and as a result of which, it's not only that the end users are getting impacted because their privacy is now breached, but at the same time, the organization that has leaked the data also is in big trouble, right? We have seen so many including big credit agencies and all, losing customer data, and that results into not just the loss of revenues, it's high cost, it's so much of litigation that kind of, then they have to deal with, but most importantly, that results into the loss of customer trust, right? As a customer, I trust you that you will have my data in safe hands. If that doesn't happen, then it's always kind of, fires back. And that the years of hard work that you have put in to build that trust is lost in a matter of days. So it's really important that you protect the data, not just in transit, but also when it is stored in the backend at rest. And we are going to talk about some examples with Exchange Online in particular to look at how that is done. Now, if that itself is not a good reason to protect data at rest, we also know that there are certain industries, there are certain regulatory requirements that actually require their customers, the organizations, to protect the data at rest, right? So those are some of the driving factors behind the need for having data protection at rest. Now, before we go into the details of Exchange service encryption, let's talk about service encryption in general. So can I have a quick kind of show of hands as to how many of you actually are aware of what service encryption actually means? Anybody here? Okay, couple of folks, yeah, a few folks, thank you. So generally when we talk about encryption at rest, we think of BitLocker, right? The BitLocker enables your hard drives to be protected, but it's a feature that is tied to the disk, it's tied to the volume, right? If I unencrypt my data from the disk and move it to another location, that BitLocker encryption is not going to follow my data. The data that is kind of in clear moves to some destination. Unless that destination also has BitLocker capability, my data is not going to be protected. So with service encryption, what we do is provide another layer of encryption on top of BitLocker so that your application data is now protected using a different set of keys. So you get this added protection on top of BitLocker. And the beauty with application level encryption, which is also service encryption, is that your encryption follows the data. Wherever your data goes, your encryption is going to follow that data. So you are always in safe hands with it, right? And other benefits that it provides is, number one, it provides good separation between the administration of your data center versus customer data. If I, as a system administrator or a data center administrator, have access to all the infrastructure, I have access to BitLocker configurations, I have access to your hardware, but I will not have access to your data because that data is now protected with a completely different set of keys. So that's the added protection again on top of BitLocker. Also, it provides you with more defense in depth. If an attacker, for any reason, gets through the data center operations and gets onto the disk and starts looking at your data. At the same time, that attacker is also going to be blocked because now they need access to the keys that are used to protect your application data, such as your Exchange Online data, your SharePoint Online data, the files that you have showed in SharePoint, and so on and so forth. So those are the added protections that service encryption provides on top of BitLocker, and that's why we feel that it's really important for applications to encrypt that data using special set of keys. Now, the features that we enable in Office 365 for service encryption, they belong to Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, and eventually it's going to be extended to other workloads. And these features are also externally audited. So our services get audited by third-party auditors, and we publish those reports online. So if you are interested, you can visit the Service Trust portal, and you will get full detail of how these services are being audited by third-party auditors for your own kind of confidence, right? So with that, as we know what service encryption is all about, let's talk about what does it mean in the context of Exchange Online service encryption. With Exchange Online service encryption, we provide two options to customers in order to encrypt their data at rest using special set of keys. Number one is called Microsoft Managed Keys based encryption. Now this is the one which is going to be there across all the commercial mailboxes across the world by default. So if you onboard your tenant to Office 365 and onboard at Exchange Online as a service, no matter what size of your organization is, how many mailboxes you have, all of them are going to be encrypted by default using Microsoft managed policies. So it is much better than having unencrypted data residing on your desks when you onboard to these services. Now going forward, by default, your data is going to be protected whether you want to kind of bring your own keys or not. Regardless of your keys being brought into the environment or not, we are going to safeguard your data using Microsoft managed keys. There is no overhead for the customer, there is no additional cost, it's all on Microsoft to do it, right? And this Microsoft managed keys based encryption is something that applies at a forest level. A forest is like a concept of a collection of servers, and a forest may be hosting multiple tenants, but what happens is that Microsoft will assign a forest level data encryption policy, and that policy will get applied to all the mailboxes that are part of that forest. Now we have started to roll out this service worldwide. So far about, I would say 10% of the forests worldwide have enabled this service. So if you are one of those tenants, then what will happen is that the moment you create new mailboxes into this environment, they are by default going to be encrypted using Microsoft policy. Now if you have existing mailboxes which are unencrypted in the same environment, the moment those mailboxes move to another location as part of load balancing or other requirements, that rewriting of that mailbox data onto a separate another destination is also going to result into encryption. So eventually all your mailboxes by default will be encrypted using Microsoft managed policy, right? So that is something that you will see over time for your tenants. Because of the sheer size of Exchange service, there are hundreds of thousands of servers worldwide. It is going to take a while before we go and hit each and every mailbox, because there are hundreds of millions of mailboxes that are out there, but eventually that's going to happen, and that's going to benefit all our customers. So we are really proud of it, and I'm sure that you will also see the value in it. But that's not enough, right? Because some customers feel that, hey, it's great that Microsoft, you are protecting my data using your own policies, which is fine, it is better than nothing, but what if I have my own requirements and I want to bring my own keys to protect my data? Of course, I trust Microsoft, but at the same time, I have my own regulatory requirement that requires me to protect my data using my own keys. So we also support that. And that feature is called customer key. Some of you may already be aware of it because we have some version of it already available today, but what we are working on it is to further expand it. And there are two parts of customer key based encryption. Number one is called tenant level policy assignment. This is something new that we are working on right now. It's not available today, but we are going to publish the timeline for it in near future. Essentially what this does is this gives the customer the control, the ability, the flexibility to bring their own keys, define data encryption policies, and assign them at a tenant level, which means given a policy, assign it to my tenant, and what that does is it will apply that policy across all your mailboxes within that tenant, right? In the previous case, it was Microsoft managing the policy and assigning it to all your mailboxes. In this case, you as a customer have control of what policies you want to create. You create a policy at a tenant level, assign it to all the mailboxes, and you are again done with it. But the difference here is that first you have to onboard to this service called customer key, and then you get access to this feature, right? Now, once you have the tenant level policy assigned through customer key, it is going to override the Microsoft managed key policy, right? So if we have by default encrypted your mailboxes, and if you bring in your own customer key based policy, of course we want to kind of honor what you have. So we are going to basically overwrite Microsoft policies with customer managed policies, right? So that is that. And then we are going further down that, hey, okay, tenant level policy is great, but I am a very large organization. I have many different groups within my organization, and I want to protect each group with a different set of policies, like one policy for finance, one policy for HR, one policy for marketing, and whatever your needs might be. We today already support that capability. That customer key based policies and applying them at a mailbox level is a feature that is available today. Once you onboard to customer key, you will have the ability to create up to 50 data encryption policies per tenant. And then you can assign those policies to a group of mailboxes that you decide to do so. And then you will have your mailboxes encrypted using your own keys, right? So in summary, what this means is that by default, Microsoft will do the best and protect your data using Microsoft managed keys, but it will give you the flexibility. You can bring your own keys. And even within that, you will have two options. You will be able to set policies at a tenant level. That's the feature that's coming in the future. But today, what's available to you is that you can create policies and assign it at a mailbox level, right? So there is kind of protection at all levels that you could basically benefit from as part of encrypting your data at rest using either our policies or using your own policies, right? So with that in the background, what I want to kind of touch upon is give you a quick kind of overview of how the exchange key hierarchy actually works when it comes to service level encryption. And there have been so many questions from customers that have come in the past, so we thought it will be better for us to touch upon this. As you could see, so this view is per data encryption policy. If I create a policy, this is the pictorial representation of what a data encryption policy looks like, right? So as you could see, there are three layers here of different sets of keys. At the top, what we have is, we call them root keys. There are two Azure Key Vault root keys, and there is an availability key. We'll come back to it later. In the center, what you see is called a data encryption policy key, which is created one per policy. And at the bottom, you have mailbox encryption key. This is the key that is actually used to encrypt the mailbox data. So what happens is that as part of the service, the mailbox encryption key gets wrapped with a data encryption policy key, and that data encryption policy key is getting wrapped with all the three root keys. So essentially what it means is that without access to any of the root keys, the service will not be able to unencrypt the data that is at the mailbox level, right? So essentially you are protecting data using the root keys, but the reason there are these multiple levels introduced is because one thing is, what if I change my keys and I want to roll my keys? All we need to do here is rewrap the keys rather than going and decrypting all the data, re-encrypting it again with all the new keys. That's going to be a performance nightmare, right? So we don't want to do that, but still want to protect the data, give the customer the ability to rotate the keys. So that's why this design has been put in place. Now coming back to the availability key, the first thing that happens in creating a policy is that I, as a customer, if I'm bringing my own keys, or Microsoft, if I'm managing Microsoft managed keys, is that I will create a policy, and the creation of the policy requires me to point to two Azure Key Vault root keys. So I need to provision those two keys in Azure Key Vault. I need to grant wrap and unwrap permission to Exchange service to use those keys, right? So that's step one. Now the moment you create a policy using Azure Key Vault keys, what we also do from the service level is that we create a third key called an availability key. And the reason for the availability key is multifold. Number one is that, as the name suggests, it's an availability key, meaning that for whatever reason, if Exchange is not able to reach out to the keys that are stored in Key Vault, we don't want your service to be interrupted, right? Because there could be AAD issues, there could be other network or transient issues. In that case, we want to make sure your mail delivery continues, users are able to log into the mailboxes and things like that. So for that reason, we fall back the service to availability key, use it only for the period of time that AKV, Azure Key Vault, is inaccessible. The moment Azure Key Vault becomes accessible again, we are going to again go back and start using your own keys, right, the root keys. So that's number one. Number two for availability key is also the fact that what if there is, the customer makes a mistake and by default, by mistake, deletes their key vault or deletes the keys or revokes access to the service. In this case also, if service does not have access to the keys, it is going to fail. It is going to stop delivering mails. It is going to stop user logins. We don't want that to happen either. So again, in that case, the service will fall back to availability key, provide you with the continuity of the service. And the third scenario that is important is also the scenario of what we call as a more of defense in depth, right? If I have a malicious user or if I have an attacker who comes into my environment, plays with my key vault, or changes the permissions, or revokes the permissions and things like that, in that case also there is recovery in place. The service will use availability key. The customer can reach out to us and say, hey, our tenant has been compromised. There is an issue with us. Please help us recover from that incident, and we'll be happy to work with you to make sure that you are able to again fall back to new set of keys that you provision from your end. So all these things are made possible through the availability key, right? So that is why its existence is in place. Now, the other benefit sometimes the customers would see with customer key, because one would ask a question that why have customer key based encryption as well as Microsoft managed key encryption. One of the benefits of customer key is not only that you control the creation of the data encryption policies, but what if you want to exit the service and years down the line you decide that, hey, I want to purge some of my data encryption policies. Purging means any data that is encrypted using my policies, I want that data to be unreadable, from here on. In that case, if you have created your own policies, you can request something called data purge to Microsoft and say, here are the list of my policies. I request you to purge those policies for me. Of course, it's not simple enough. We have made that process a bit complicated with intention, because your data is at risk here. So we work with you, with the customer. We get through a set of steps, a process. We get a document signed by the customer saying that I agree to kind of remove my data encryption policies because of reason whatever that you have. And at that point, what we will also do is that we will go and delete the corresponding availability key that the service had created at the time of creating the policy, right? So what happens is that as part of purging a policy, you are revoking access to the service to your own keys, and we in the backend are going to delete the availability key altogether. So what that means is that there is no key available to the data that was encrypted by you for your own kind of requirement, and because there are no keys available now, the data itself is in what we call as a crypto deleted state, meaning there is nothing meaningful in that data. Nobody will be able to make any sense out of it, and your data is basically safeguarded in that sense as well, right? So that is a data purge scenario that customer key kind of offers on top of it. Now, one of the things that customers have come back to us and told us is that, hey Microsoft, I understand there is this third key, there is this availability key, but I have no transparency, I have no visibility into when the service actually is falling back to using, or service is switching over to using the availability key. And to that regard, what we have done is that we have added additional logging for you as a customer to look at and see when did, for my tenant, the service actually switched over to using the availability key. And that is something I'm going to show you as a demo, so you can take a look. And the other demo I'll show is also how a tenant is configured with customer key, the existing version of customer key at a mailbox level, as well as a Microsoft managed key deployed tenant, and show you how a new mailbox that we create automatically gets encrypted using the default policy. So let's look at a couple of those demos. All right. Oops, sorry. Okay. So what you see here is essentially is that I'm logged into the security and compliance portal as an administrator. And when I go to the security and compliance portal, basically I'm going to my office portal. I'm logged in as an administrator. From there, I go to security and compliance center. And then from there, I'm basically looking at the search results into the audit log, right? So this is my place where I could look at all my log results. Now we want to know that, okay, I'm onboarded to using customer key. I know there is this availability key. I, as a tenant administrator, I want to know when was this availability key used as part of running the service and encrypting my data, right? So here you could come in here, and what we have done is that we have added a new record type in the logs, which is called customer key service encryption. So you could look for that record type, and then you will be able to list all the records that are part of that. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to search for availability key, and the moment I type in availability, it is going to list that particular event for me, and I'll be able to kind of select that. So here you can see the record type, which is customer key service encryption. Here is that activity type, which is the availability key. I select the availability key here, and then I can give it a time range like start date and end date, and then I basically search for the results of when the availability key came into action, right? So as part of searching these results, it's going to look at all my logs, the unified audit logs, and it will present me the records when the availability key was used by the service and when the service had to basically switch over to using the availability key. When the records come up, as you could see, in this case, there were 5 instances in which the availability key switchover happened as part of my tenant, and then I can look at for further curiosity, I can look at those results, and I can look at the details. It tells me, hey, what date, what time that switchover actually happened, what was the activity that took place. It also tells me what is the organization ID, what is my policy ID for which this availability key was in action, right? So this way, you can take a look at all your availability key switchovers and can have the further transparency into when it is used. So we are hoping that this feature will be of use to our customers. And if you have further feedback, feel free to reach out to us. We also have a command line interface, a PowerShell commandlet, in order to search for unified audit logs using the record type of customer service encryption, and you will be able to fetch the same results through that, right? So that is that. Now let's look at the other part where I said the example of a tenant with a Microsoft managed key policy that is assigned, and a tenant that is also onboarded to using customer key, right? So I'm logged into my test tenant as a tenant administrator. What I'm going to do here is first I'm going to, let me just log in here. So I'm going to list all the mailboxes that are part of this tenant. So as you can see, I do a get mailbox, and I can display the name of the mailbox, and it is kind of telling me that what is the display name and what is the identity of my mailboxes. Now I want to go further into this, right? I want to look at what are the policies that are assigned to these mailboxes. So what I'm doing here is that I've run a commandlet get mailbox. I piped it to get mailbox statistics because I want to know the encryption status of each of these mailboxes. Now here, because I said this tenant has a combination of Microsoft managed based policy as well as the customer key policy, you could see here there is most of these policy IDs are starting with are the same, right? These are the ones that are Microsoft managed policies, except one here assigned to the person Ronald, his mailbox, which is starting with a different policy ID that is essentially a customer managed key based ID, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new mailbox in this tenant and see how it gets encrypted by default using the Microsoft managed policy. So I'll do new mailbox. So what I'm doing here is essentially creating a new mailbox of type shared. This is a shared mailbox, by the way. So any type of mailbox will get encrypted. It's not just, it's only the user mailbox that is going to be encrypted. So I can have different types, and those types of mailboxes are going to be encrypted using the default policy as well. So once this goes through, we will kind of take a look at the policy details. Yeah, so this is, let it kind of go through. Yeah, so what it has done here is essentially, it has created a mailbox for me. It gives me the mailbox details, it gives me the database and other information, which is great. Now here, as I mentioned earlier, this feature that we are looking at right now is a mailbox level policy assignment. So when I bring in my own customer key, I can assign it to a particular mailbox, and when I have Microsoft managed key, it gets assigned to the rest of the mailboxes, right? That's why you see that more and more mailboxes being kind of encrypted using the Microsoft managed key. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to force the login into the mailbox. So I can do this using this commandlet and say, hey, I want to basically force the login into this mailbox, and then I'll be able to check the encryption status of that mailbox, right? So now I have gone back, I have checked in, logged into the mailbox. Now I'm going to rerun the same commandlet that we ran earlier to see how my newly created mailbox is going to appear and what is going to be its encryption status. Now here, as you could see, we created the new mailbox called Ignite Demo, and we can see that the data encryption policy ID is the one that was the default one, and its encryption status is true, which means that if my tenant has Microsoft managed key based encryption enabled, any new mailbox that I create will by default will get encrypted using Microsoft policy. And then you still have the option, if I create a mailbox and I want to assign customer key based policy, if I'm a tenant onboarded to customer key, I'll be able to also assign that policy to any of these mailboxes, and that will basically override what was done with Microsoft managed key policy, right? So that is essentially the demo part. In terms of the summary of what we talked about here is that protecting your data has two main categories, right? Data in transit and data at rest. Microsoft provides you solutions to cover your end-to-end encryption, be it at rest or in transit. And it is very important to understand that service level encryption adds this added value on top of BitLocker. So if you are, as mentioned earlier, by default for Exchange Online, for SharePoint Online, and in future for other services, by default, Microsoft is going to do its best to protect your data, but we are also going to provide you with added flexibility to bring your own keys, control your data. You can go through the data purge scenario if that is what it's of interest to you. And also, we have the logging and auditing capability, so you could kind of go and search for the logs and look at all the DAP operations, DAP meaning the data encryption policy operations, that who created the policies, when were those policies assigned, and things like that. And in addition to that, you can also query the availability key switchovers and look at that information as well if you are interested into that, right? So that's pretty much we have in terms of the topic here that we wanted to discuss. If you don't have, so for customer key right now, mailbox level encryption using customer key requires either an E5 or an advanced compliance queue license. For Microsoft managed key, you don't need anything. It will be taken care of by Microsoft. But if you want to bring your own keys, then we require a special license. If you don't have E5 license, there is a trial version available. So we would recommend you to kind of go and try it out and see if you are interested in pursuing it further. So that's something to look at. And also a bunch of resources that we have put into the slide deck. Sorry, I should have switched over here. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. So here's the link for you to go and kind of sign up for a trial license. And also there are resources that are available for you to kind of learn more about both these features, data in transit as well as data at rest, so that you can actually learn more about it and then reach out to us for any further questions, right? So I'll just pause here for a second if folks want to take a picture, but these slides are going to be published anyways on the Ignite portal, so you can also take a look at it back then after this session. And then finally, we want to thank you because compliance was a big kind of topic this Ignite. We had many sessions, we had good attendance from all over the place, and we really appreciate your time and giving us good feedback. Again, we are here to help, so if there are any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And also, we would really appreciate your evaluations, feedback, because that's the only way we could improve things for our customers and for the future. So please, do your part and please, give us your honest feedback so that we can, continuously improve. And you can also find this session, as I mentioned earlier, online. so that you can go back and look at this on your own time. So thank you so much, and we are here to answer any questions that you may have. So thanks.
Yep. Thanks everyone for coming to Ignite.